Every conversion optimization best practice tells you the same thing. Reduce friction. Shorten the funnel. Fewer clicks. Fewer decisions. Get people to the button as fast as possible. We added a step, which added more friction and slowed the visitor down. Then subscriptions went up 31.26%. And not on top of a bad page, on top of a page that had already won a 23.53% subscription lift in the test we talked about last episode. This was a compound win. Same brand, same traffic, same product. Human SuperBeets. The second optimization on the same landing page stacked on top of the first and added another $77,000 in subscription revenue on top of the $200,000 the previous test we delivered. Combined, these two tests were worth roughly $280,000 on a page that was already converting well. And pages that are already converting well are typically harder to get improvements on. What I want to walk you through today is why adding friction, which every playbook tells you not to do, is sometimes the single highest leverage move you can make on a supplement subscription page. And more specifically, why the type of friction matters. Because we didn't just run one friction test. We ran two competing treatments against control. Both used the same psychological principle. Only one of them won. And the reason only one of them won is the actual lesson of this episode. Welcome to Health Business Mastery, the Creative Thirst podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Hewitt. If you didn't catch the last episode, here's the short version. Human is a supplement brand, doing over $65 million in revenue. Their flagship product is SuperBeets, a nitric oxide drink mix. The traffic we optimized was coming from TV ads, so it's warm traffic. They are already primed. The goal wasn't to increase the conversion rate, it was to increase the subscription take rate. They are going after a higher lifetime value buyer. In the first test, we added a section above the offer block. The top half of that section was educational. The winning headline was, "You ask a lot of your body, help replenish NO every day." And it walked the reader through why nitric oxide matters, why dietary sources aren't enough past 40, and why daily replenishment was the logical format. The bottom half was 4 trust blocks that dismantled the main subscription objections. That test moved subscription sales by 23.53%. Now we had a page that was genuinely well optimized. The educational bridge was working. The trust architecture was working. The subscription option was a big win. Most agencies would have moved to the next thing on the page. We didn't. And here's why. When we looked at the offer block itself after the previous test, we saw something worth investigating. Even with all the upstream work, the page was still asking the visitor to make 2 decisions simultaneously at the offer block. Those decisions were, what quantity am I buying? 1 canister, 2 canisters, 4 canisters. And what format am I buying it in? Subscription or one time? That's 2 decisions in one moment, which is a classic decision paralysis setup, just slightly masked because the page was otherwise strong. The question we came in with for test 2 was, what happens if we separate those 2 decisions? And can we use the sequence itself to make the second decision easier? That's where one of Robert Cialdini's persuasion principle came in. The principle we used on this test is called commitment and consistency. From Robert Cialdini's book, Influence, probably the single most useful book on persuasion ever written for direct response. The core insight is that once people make a small commitment, they have a deep psychological drive to stay consistent with it, even if the initial commitment was minor. Applied to business optimization, the play is get someone to commit to something small first, then ask them to commit to something larger in a way that's consistent with the first commitment. The second ask feels natural because saying yes to it keeps them in alignment with the yes they already said. I'm not going to lecture you on the principle because longtime listeners know I think frameworks are easy and application is hard. What I want to walk you through is 2 different ways we applied that principle to the same page and why only one of them worked. Here's what treatment number 1 looked like. We broke up the decision into 2 steps. In step 1, we used the same educational content from the previous winning test, which was the nitric oxide explainer that used our trust, belief, desire, and hope framework, expressed in the succession of copy we added. But in this test, instead of leading directly down to an offer block, it asked the visitor to make a commitment first. The headline for this commitment read, "Choose the option you most agree with below." And there were 3 button choices. Button 1, I will fully commit. Button 2, I am ready to start. Button 3, sounds good to me. Clicking any of the 3 buttons revealed step 2, which was the offer block. There was 3 offers in a classic 3 package tier structure. Best deal, good deal, single jar, each with a pre-checked subscription option and an unchecked one-time option. The checkbox copy read, subscribe and save $20 on the best deal tier. 2 free bonus gifts were stacked above the offers, free nitric oxide indicator strips, and a free 60-day supply of SuperBeets. The psychology at play here is that the visitor makes a commitment to their health when they click one of the 3 buttons to expose the offer section. Remember those 3 buttons from earlier? The ones that said, I will fully commit. I am ready to start. And the 3rd button that said, sounds good to me. And then they are shown the offers. In theory, the consistency with that commitment makes them more likely to be consistent with that commitment by choosing the subscription option, which the 3 buttons are doing. It really doesn't matter which button they click, since all of them are commitment signals and all of them open the offer section. So that's treatment 1. Now, let me describe what treatment 2 is that we tested in a 3-way split here against the winning control from the previous episode. So treatment 2 used the same educational content up top. Same headline, same bullets, same imagery, same page above the fold. But the first decision asked wasn't a commitment to health like in treatment 1. In treatment 2, it was a concrete purchase commitment. The header below the education read, Step 1, choose your savings. Below that were the same 3 offers side by side. Offer 1 was labeled Best Deal in red, buy 4, get 2 free. 6-month supply, $24.98 per canister, plus free shipping, plus 2 free canisters, plus 25 free NO strips. The call to action button said, Next step. Offer 2 was labeled a good deal in gray, buy 2, get 1 free, 3-month supply, $26.63 per canister, plus free shipping, plus 1 free canister, plus 25 free NO strips. The call to action button said, Next step. There as well. Offer 3 was labeled a single box in light gray. Buy 1-month supply, $39.95. The call to action button there also said, Next step. These call to action buttons are key, but notice what's missing from step 1 in treatment 2. There's no subscribe or one-time decision. That's not on the table yet. The only decision at step 1 is quantity. How much SuperBeets am I buying? Once they click next step, they go to step 2, which presents 2 options, the subscription versus one-time decision for the package they just selected. The subscription option on the left, it's red bordered and says, save $20 more. It reads, never miss a day. Get 4 canisters plus 2 free. A full 6-month supply every 6 months with free shipping. Price, $21.65 per canister, a $129.90 total. The call to action button here is Add to Cart. The one-time option on the right is gray and says standard option, single order. Same canisters, same bonuses, but $24.98 per canister. Total $149.90. Call to action. Button says add to cart. So subscription saves them $20. That's it. That's the only difference at step 2. Everything else is identical. That's treatment 2. Which treatment would you have bet on? Before I tell you what happened, I want to be honest about something. We ran this as a 3-way test, control, versus treatment 1 versus treatment 2, because we genuinely weren't sure which was going to win. And I'll tell you what my bet was going in. I bet treatment 1 was going to win. The logic was that asking for an explicit verbal commitment, clicking "I will fully commit to my health," is a more powerful emotional anchor. It was identity-level language. The user was literally declaring something about themselves before seeing the offer. Treatment 2 felt more transactional to me. You're just picking a box size. There's no emotional language, no identity work, just a quantity decision. I was wrong. Treatment 2 won, and it wasn't even close. The package commitment flow drove a 31.26% lift in subscription sales over the control. That's on top of the 23.53% from test 1. Stacked together, this was roughly a 55% improvement in subscription conversion on a page that, let me remind you, was already working well. Treatment 1 in this second test didn't win. Yes, it performed okay, but nowhere near treatment 2. And the reason why is the actual lesson here. Here's the insight, and this is the thing I want you to remember from this episode. Commitment and consistency only works to the degree that the initial commitment is real. Clicking "I will fully commit" is not a real commitment. It's a click. It costs the user nothing. There's no identity investment in the click because the click didn't actually commit them to anything concrete. They didn't pay, they didn't choose, they didn't scope anything. They just pressed a button labeled with a feel-good phrase. Selecting a 6-month supply at $129 is a real commitment. Even though the transaction hasn't happened yet, the user has mentally accepted the purchase. They've said to themselves, I'm buying 4 canisters, I'm investing in a 6-month supply. That's a concrete, quantified decision with a dollar figure attached. When step 2 then asks them subscription versus one-time, the user isn't being asked to commit. They're already committed. They're just being asked how to take delivery of the thing they already decided to buy. And once the decision is framed that way, the subscription option becomes obviously correct. You're already getting 4 canisters. Do you want to save $20 by letting it auto-renew, or pay $20 more for the same product with no benefit? One-time purchase stops being a neutral alternative. It starts looking irrational. That's the mechanism. The first commitment anchored the scope of the purchase. The second decision was about logistics, not commitment. And once subscription is framed as the smarter logistics for a decision you've already made, the take rate moves dramatically. I want to generalize this for the marketing director listening because the specific implementation matters less than the underlying pattern. Most supplement subscription pages are asking the visitor to make 2 decisions at the same moment. What am I buying and how am I buying it? Quantity and format simultaneously at the same checkbox grid. That's decision compression. And decision compression suppresses subscription take rate specifically because subscription is the higher commitment option, and higher commitment options lose when they're presented alongside lower commitment options at the same decision point. Sequencing the decisions, quantity first, format second, changes everything. Because once quantity is locked in, the format decision becomes a comparison of value within a pre-committed purchase, not a comparison of commitment levels. And subscription wins the value comparisons, but it loses commitment comparisons. This is counterintuitive because the typical playbook teaches you to reduce clicks. And in most contexts, that's correct. But on a subscription offer page specifically, a well-placed click between the quantity decision and the format decision is the highest leverage piece of friction you can add. This is the kind of testing you do to make big gains, not button color testing. So here's what I'd change if I were running this test today. First, the step 1 button copy on treatment 2. Next step is fine, but I'd probably test something slightly more directional, something that reinforces what they just chose. Something like continue with 6-month supply. Yes, that's a tiny change, but it re-anchors the commitment at the moment of click. Second, I'd kill the free gift stack on step 2. That bonus number 1, bonus number 2 architecture was standard direct response when this test ran. But it clutters a page that's supposed to be doing one job, converting a committed buyer into a subscription buyer. I'd strip it to a single clean value statement and let subscription savings do the lifting to save margin, and also because the traffic here is warm traffic. Third, the mobile flow needs rebuilding. The 3 offer selector at step 1 stacks vertically on mobile, and it forces the user to scroll past options to compare them. On mobile, I'd probably test a single scroll architecture where the best deal is visually dominant and the alternatives are collapsed below. Same logic, different execution for the device most of this traffic is on. Fourth, I'd test a version where step 1 has the subscription framing baked in visually without requiring it in the decision. What I mean is, the best deal offer could show the subscription price as the headline price, with one time as a smaller alternative before the user has formally made the subscription decision. This subtle visual anchoring at step 1 will pre-biases the step 2 choice we want them to take. It's more aggressive than the original test, but probably worth exploring. Fifth, and this is the one I'm most curious about, I'd test whether the commitment step needs to be quantity-based at all. What if step 1 were a commitment to a time frame? How long do you want to try this? 3-month, 6-month, 12-month? And step 2 sequenced subscription versus one time from there. Same principle, different commitment axis. This might work better for a supplement where the subscription duration is the psychological commitment rather than the quantity. None of those criticisms invalidate the original result. Treatment 2 worked. It worked a lot better. So what does this tell you about your own page? The diagnostic for you to do in this episode is simpler than the last episode. Go pull up your subscription offer page. Look at your offer block. Count the number of decisions the visitor has to make at that single moment. Package size, subscription versus one time. Delivery frequency, flavor or variant, quantity discount tier. If your offer block is asking for 3 or more decisions at the same moment, you have decision compression. And decision compression is suppressing your subscription take rate specifically because subscription is the higher commitment option, and it gets punished when it's compared directly to lower commitment options at the same click. Ask yourself, what's the single most important scoping decision the visitor needs to make? Whatever it is, quantity, duration, flavor variant, isolate it into step 1. Get the commitment there. Then let step 2 be about format. Subscription will win step 2 almost every time once step 1 is locked in. And if you're worried about the friction of adding a step, I'd point you back to the 31.26% lift. Sometimes a click is the most profitable thing you can add to a page. But are subscriptions better than a one-time sales? Well, a sale is a sale, but there is a nuance to that answer, which I'll leave for another episode. I've talked about subscription versus one-time, and which is better in my weekly group coaching calls. But let me do the quick math on both these tests before I wrap up. In test 1, we got a 23.53% subscription lift, over $200,000 in additional revenue. Test 2 got a 31.26% subscription lift. On top of that, another $77,000. Combined, that's roughly $280,000 in incremental subscription revenue. On one page, on traffic the brand was already paying to send, both tests together required less creative budget than a single month of paid social for most brands this size. That's the math on a rigorous revenue growth program run against a subscription funnel. If you're running a supplement brand at $10 million and up, and your subscription take rate has been flat for 2 quarters, despite your team running offer block tests, this episode and the last one together are the answer. Move the persuasion upstream. Sequence the decisions. Stop asking the offer block to do work that belongs before the offer block. Thanks for listening.